Hello and welcome to Real Biz. I'm Rebecca Jarvis here in New York City, and here's what's on our radar today. When Bill Clinton, Oprah Winfrey, and Serena Williams need advice, there is one man they call Tony Robbins. He is one of the most respected life and business strategists in the world. Tony started his career doing infomercials, and now he charges clients thousands, sometimes even millions of dollars for his help. But for Tony, life wasn't always a walk in the park. His insights stem from his own troubled childhood, but he took his experience, turned it into dedicating a career to teaching others struggling to believe in themselves and be positive. In his newest book, Money, Master the Game, 7 Simple Steps to Financial Freedom, Tony teaches everyone from college students to senior citizens how to save and invest their money. Tony, it's so nice to have you on Real Biz.
Thank you, it's great to be here.
And I definitely want to get to the book because you've talked to so many incredible minds for this book.
Yes.
But I gotta start with the Firewalk, because anybody who thinks Tony Robbins thinks of this Firewalk.
Oh, that's terrible.
But it's this, when you see the pictures of people doing this, and I watched Oprah Winfrey in preparation for this. I was going over YouTube and I watched Oprah Winfrey take the walk. It's shocking that you can convince people to do this, but you do.
But it's really not about that. Really, it's just showing people that so many things in your life you think are difficult or impossible are actually easy if you put yourself in the right state of mind. You know, it's hard to diet when you're using willpower, but it's easy when you're driven. And so what I do is, Oprah's a perfect example. She came to one of my events. She said, "Look, Tony, I love you, but I can't sit anywhere for 2 hours, and it's a 50-hour weekend." Well, I don't have people just sit. I mean, people go for 50 hours and come out and say one of the greatest experiences of my life. At the end of 12 hours, she said, I'm standing on a chair saying, those are the greatest experiences they've ever had.
And in the back of their mind, they know they're making that Firewalk.
But it's even before the Firewalk. But the Firewalk's just a metaphor for whatever you're afraid to do. Getting yourself in a state of mind where you push yourself to do what you're afraid to do is what life's about. When you do that, that's when you have a breakthrough. And I just use that metaphor. I used to use skydiving, but it's hard to get 7,000 people above New York City in the middle of the night and do skydiving.
A little more expensive, too. The Firewalk probably is a little more cost effective.
Yes.
One of those things that people, and I see this so much in my career, people are very afraid to take that first step when it comes to finance, to investing, to thinking about their future, because it is so overwhelming.
Yes.
And a lot of people might say, well, why would somebody like you write a book about personal finance?
Well, part of it is most people don't know that for most of my life, I guess about 30 years, I've been teaching finance along with everything else. Because I look at what are the areas of life that matter to you most. It's your body, it's your emotions, it's your relationships, and it's money. But in 2008, when all of a sudden everybody was losing their homes, when people were losing half of what they earned, literally of a lifetime, it wasn't a statistic to me because I grew up dirt poor. So I wanted to do something, and I have a unique gift most people don't know. I've been coaching Paul Tudor Jones, one of the top 10 financial traders in history, for 21 years. So every day I know what he's doing for 21 years, and he hasn't lost money in 21 years. In fact, in 2008, when the market, from peak to trough was down 51%, he was up 28%. So I thought, with that insight, if I could go interview 50 of the smartest minds in the world, the Carl Icahns, the Ray Dalios, and find out exactly what they believe are the best tools and then simplify it into 7 steps so I could help anyone change, it'd be a worthy project. So it took 4 years, but now it's the #1 New York Times bestseller for the 3rd month in a row, and people's lives are changing, which is what I did it for.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The number one thing, the number one thread, because you have the 7 steps, but what is the number one thing when it comes to money you think people should be doing?
Can I give you 3?
Sure, let's do 3.
I'll give the most
Would I
basic,
say no to that? No.
The most basic one is you've got to stop being a consumer and be an owner. And most people watching this business, I think, have done that. But if you're investing and you don't actively know what's really going on, you're not in the game and you're not tapping its real power. You've got to become an insider. And most people, for example, don't know that where do most people in America put their money? In a mutual fund. 97% of all mutual funds never match the market over a 10-year period, right? So 4% do, and your chances of picking the right one of that 4% are like playing blackjack, and if you got 2 face cards and your inner idiot says, hit me, I'm gonna get an ace, you have an 8% chance. You have a 4% chance to get the right mutual fund. You've got to understand the importance of fees. Most people have no idea the difference between 1% and 3%. That's what Obama's trying to get across. Well, the difference is almost 50% of your earnings for the same stock, for the same return, 50% of that money goes away in fees. So I created Portfolio Checkup along with the book, portfoliocheckup.com, where people can go find out exactly what they're paying, costs them nothing, and exactly how they're performing and what their risk levels are. So you got to know that. But the third thing is, what I learned from all these people was that they are focused very different than you and I on risk. The greatest investors in the world you think would be taking giant risks.
They're not.
They believe in what's called asymmetrical risk reward. Asymmetrical risk reward simply means they take the least amount of risk humanly possible for the largest upside. So Kyle Bass, who turned $30 million into $2 billion in 2 years, unbelievable, in the middle of the credit crisis, did it because he risked 6 cents to make $1. So if he's wrong, he can be wrong 15 times and still make money, and he wasn't wrong 15 times. So finding those asymmetrical risk rewards is also what the book's about, because I go in and ask the people, where can you do that today for the average person?
In the book, you talk about if people follow these steps, and I want to quote here, you say they will win this game.
Yeah.
What does winning this game mean?
It means life on your terms. That's different for everybody. Some people, that's being able to have their kids go to college and not have stress and have a beautiful home. Some people, they want to build a giant business. Everyone has different goals. But in the book, I help you define exactly what it will make winning be for you, because it's different for you than it is for me or anybody else. But once you know what the game is, I think most people look around and they go, when 50 to 70% of the market is being done by computers, when high frequency trading is happening, and the time it takes to click your mouse on, to pick a stock.
Right.
Somebody's traded that 1,000 times. Most people say, I can't win the game. I went to all these investors and said, can they still win? They said, yes. I said, how?
They believe it.
How. They know they can, but they're not going to do it through a traditional approach. They're not going to do it through a traditional mutual fund or financial planner. Ray Dalio, I asked him, 160 billion in assets. A big hedge fund might be 15 billion. He's 10 times the size, largest in the world. I said, Ray, how can somebody win today? And if you couldn't pass on your money to your kids, and all you could pass on was a portfolio or a strategy, what would it be? And he said, Tony, I've spent 10 years of my life figuring the answer to that question, because it's where my kids' money is, my money is, and the money for my donations when I pass. And I said, what is it? And most of us in the business have heard of it as all seasons fund. And so he described it to me in detail. And I said, well, that's great. I can explain that in the book, but you didn't tell me the proportions, which is everything. It's like build a chocolate cake, use some chocolate, use some sugar.
Right.
How much? That's
Right.
what the game is. Because Tony, that's my secret sauce. I get billions for that. I said, no, you don't. You haven't taken money in 10 years. Right? You have $5 billion net worth and $100 million to start with him 10 years ago. Today, he still won't talk to you. So I said, you're giving away half your net worth while you're alive. You're a generous man. Give me the secret sauce. And he laughed. In the end, he laid out a strategy that has no leverage. So it's not all seasons, or I should say all weather. It's called all seasons. And when we back tested it for 75 years, it's been right 85% of the time. And the 15% when it's been wrong, didn't make money, the average loss was 1.4%.
A lot safer than the market as we've seen it.
Last year it did 15.2. The market did, 13 and change. This year it's staying with the market. It doesn't have the volatility. So there's no end all or be all, but it's worth looking into. And it's only one of the many strategies in the book.
A lot of people feel like when they look at the financial crisis, the Great Recession, they feel like the game is rigged. Do you believe the game is rigged?
It is rigged, but you can still win. You've got to learn to use it and not be used by it. And it's not that there's this evil force out there, these horrible people. The corporations that run the financial business are corporations. They're trying to make the most
They want to be profitable.
for their shareholders. But that's not making you the most profitable investor you could be. So you have to know how to protect yourself and take advantage. And basically that's what I wanted to document. Both where's the abuse, but then here's the solution. I watched a documentary called Inside Job. That's what started me on this journey. And at the end of it, you watched it?
Yes, of course.
What did you feel at the end of it?
Well, you feel anger.
Yes.
I think a lot of people feel anger because they feel after watching that the game is rigged. And I think a lot of people covering this business, as I have now throughout the financial crisis, you hear it from so many different places that getting a leg up is close to impossible. And I do wonder about that, because when it comes to a book like this and all of your books, self-help as a category, for many, many people, they're going to buy this book and they're going to hope and try to do everything to a T.
Yeah.
But if they've done all of that and still haven't succeeded, they don't feel like they won at the game, as you put it.
Yeah.
Does it ever concern you that there's a flip side to this business, that it can actually, instead of giving people worth, it almost makes them feel worthless if they've tried and failed?
If you try and fail, that makes you feel worthless. You can't live. Every relationship, every business, every career requires failure. Failure used effectively is an educational tool. It makes you better for the future. But you either let your situation destroy you or drive you. And so for those who don't take the right approach, we don't just get rewarded. We live in a world where we all expect instantaneously, I hit a key and I get the instant reward and I don't have to pay for it or do anything. That's not life. So my whole piece is, I went to these people to see what works that's law. If you do this through time, it works. If you don't work it, that's a different situation. But what I did in the book is I realized that 80% of success is psychological and 20% is mechanics. So with the mechanics, I take you on a journey psychologically so that you're in the state that you really act on it. And then the most important thing is I've created these tools like portfoliocheckup.com where you can go right now without the book, or you can go to the book and take the insides of it, and you can figure out all your accounts and figure out what are you really paying. I mean, if you're paying 1% versus 3%, $100,000 at 7% a year for 30 years, two people both did the same thing, had the same stocks, the same 7% return, but the person at 1% at that point has almost $600,000, 574. The person at 3% has 324. I mean, you're going to give up $250,000 for the same stocks because you're not educated. So I've created tools that you can do in 5 minutes. Literally in 3 minutes, you can see how you compare to other portfolios. But the book will walk you through the steps. And then I also recommend connecting you to a fiduciary. You know, you need to have somebody that truly is looking out for your financial interest, not because they want to, but because they're required to. And I think most people in financial business have high integrity. But, you know, if you go to a butcher, they're going to sell you beef. If you go to a dietitian, they're going to go, there's nothing wrong with the butcher. He eats the same beef, he believes in it, but you need some fish, you need some salad, you're going to get cancer. You need somebody who is required to look out for you and is not vested, they're not getting a commission in the process.
Right.
And I connect people through portfolio.com and in the book to fiduciaries, a whole group of them that you can go evaluate who've said, I will charge nothing more than 1% fees, I will take 0 commissions, I am a fiduciary. So there's a standard there to take care of people because you do want somebody who can help you sometimes, or you can do it yourself. And I tell you both ways.
And what a lot of people don't know, and there's actually laws and legislation going on right now around this, is that those who are out there as financial advisors are mixed into 2 different groups. The group that is allowed to charge whatever fees that they want and doesn't necessarily have to do things in people's best interest.
It sounds insane, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sounds insane, but it actually exists. And then there's the other group, which has to actually make financial recommendations in the best interest of the client, not just in the best interest of the organization making them.
And the problem is there are 300 names for a broker: wealth manager, wealth advisor, but
Right.
you might be a really good person, but they're only going to sell you what they can sell you, which is the beef that the organization has built. And that organization is trying to maximize profitability. Their standard is called suitable. Do you want a suitable meal? Would you like to have suitable sex? Was that suitable, honey? You know, what you want is the F word,
It suits
fiduciary. You want fiduciary,
Right,
somebody who's
fiduciary.
got the higher standard, somebody who's required to put your interest. If you bought Apple, they told you to buy Apple this morning, and they buy Apple later in the afternoon cheaper, they have to give it to you. I mean, that's the standard you want to put yourself
Absolutely.
inside. But not all fiduciaries are equal. You know, here's a salesman, here's a fiduciary. But then there's sophisticated versus unsophisticated versus sophisticated. You want somebody that's highly sophisticated in a fiduciary. You might have somebody who really cares about you and is looking out for your interests, but they're not skilled. So you need both, and that's really what I try to connect people to.
I want to talk about you as a businessman.
Great.
I mean, you have an incredible business.
Yes.
You have built, I think your wealth is estimated right now at $500 million. You can tell me if that's true or not. You're not going to go there.
Number, no.
I figured.
But
I do want to talk about building this.
Yes.
Building Tony Robbins. What are the smartest choices you've made along the way to build the empire that is you?
I think the most important thing in any business is to start where your entire focus is to do more for others than anybody else does. That's the only way you become wealthy and stay wealthy in financial terms in business. Anybody can get wealthy. If you're going to stay wealthy, you have to add value over decades, and you got to do it better than anybody else. But I've done that not just in my speaking career, or I certainly wouldn't have that impact. I have now, 22 companies, 12 that I'm actively involved in, and they're in everything from, the educational business that I am in to hospitality
How do
to
you
financial
manage it all?
services. I have extraordinary people. I mean, I look at Richard Branson's a dear friend of mine, and he's a role model for me. I'm certainly not Richard Branson, but my companies now do a little more than $5 billion in annual sales revenues. And for me to do that from starting with nothing, it's not even been my goal to build those businesses. It just started out with something I was passionate about, and I wanted to bring it to a mass number of people. When you help millions and millions of people with something, you're going to do well.
How did you you talk about Richard Branson, Paul Tudor Jones. These are people, these are not the crystal toting sort of self-help, new agey types who are frequently, when it comes to the self-help space, frequently associated with self-help.
Yes.
How did you get them in the beginning? 1986, you come out with your first book.
Well, 1986, Pat Riley calls me after reading my book and says, I want you to work with me. I'm dealing with this issue in the Lakers. It starts with that. I get an Olympian. I can remember Mark Benioff coming to me 15 years ago from Salesforce.com, and he was at Oracle and he went through one of my programs and it pushed him over the edge and he grabbed me and looked me in my eyes and said, remember me, I'm going to change the business world. I'm going to build Salesforce.com, $100 million company. I tease them about it now, they're doing $5 billion, right? So I've been on the journey with them all along the way. I've been with Paul, for 21 years. So, I knew him in his early 30s, so I've seen him make money in every market, ups, downs, I've been right beside him. So these are my friends, these are people I'm here to give advice to, but I'm learning much more, in my opinion, back from them. And then I take that and I apply that to all the areas of my life, especially my businesses.
You coached Bill Clinton through the Monica Lewinsky scandal. What would be your advice to Hillary Clinton now? You're not going there?
No,
Has she asked you for help?
No, she's not.
She hasn't.
But one of the reasons I get the phone calls I do is I don't talk about what I talk about with these people.
You clear
so
it with them
privacy.
first before you. But is there a unifying theme of all of these very important public figures that come to you? What is their number one concern?
Well, it's usually one of two things. They've achieved everything except fulfillment. They've got the money, the Oscars, the accolades, and they're not happy. And that's because success without fulfillment is failure. There has to be in all human beings one thing: progress. You want to know what happiness is? It's called progress. If you're not where you want to be, you're 30 pounds overweight, but you start making progress, you'll light up. Your relationships.
So how do you, for those people who are right on the verge of something, and it's like they keep trying and they don't get there, what's your number one piece of advice to the entrepreneurs, the business people out there who feel it? They can see it, but they keep grabbing for it and it's not coming to them.
They're missing what I call a breakthrough. And a breakthrough comes in one of three things. Either you need a new strategy, because you're running east looking for a sunset, and I don't care how positive you are, it's not going to work, right? So I help people figure out what's the best strategy for getting that result in the shortest period of time, because I've spent 3.5 decades doing it. But you could have the best strategy and not execute because you have a story. Your story is nothing works. I've tried everything. I'm big boned. All the good ones are gone. Whatever it is. The system's rigged. And your story may be right. The system is rigged, but you could still win. And when you live in your story, you'll never use the strategy even if you know it. And so that's why I say it's psychological skills first, maybe tools second. And then the third thing you need for a breakthrough is a different sense of fuel, what I call a state. If you're in a state of, I don't know what I'm going to do, if you're in a state of feeling numb or just frustrated, you're not going to execute. Your story of life's going to be lousy, and you're going to come up with a lousy strategy. So I work on strategy, story, state to create a breakthrough. Let's change your state. Let's come up with a set of belief structures that will guide you and get you to do what's necessary. And let's come up with a set of tools that are proven, and then execution is easy.
I want to go to something I call RJ's Rapid Fire.
Great.
If you could coach anyone at this point, who would it be?
Gosh, who I'd love to help, who's never reached out. Somebody even maybe in the sports field that I won't even say their name, that's really struggling right now and is highly talented, and I know I can help.
Not Justin Bieber or Kanye West?
No, not just those two.
Is that person A-Rod, by the way?
No, not A-Rod, but he reached out a few years ago, and I was unable to coach him at the time because my schedule is so crazy, unfortunately. I feel for him. Honestly, he's an incredibly driven guy who's made some big mistakes, and I think it's going to be hard for him to get a fair shake, but he can make it happen if he performs.
If you could change one thing about yourself, what would it be?
Make myself smaller so I fit in cars.
And this chair.
Buy clothes.
And this chair. What kind of car do you drive?
I have a Rolls Royce and I have a Range Rover, but I'm usually driven by somebody else because I'm living on the road about every 4 days. I'm on a plane or a train or in front of an event.
What is the last thing you bought?
A jet.
A jet?
Yes, I'm in the process of doing it right now.
Did you buy that online?
No, I did not.
Do you have favorite musicians?
P. Diddy, I love.
P. Diddy?
Yeah, it was just anything from P. Diddy.
What's the last song you listened to on your phone?
I was listening to Tupac's. The line is, "Don't be a bitch." It's kind of the frame in the last part of the piece.
That's a first for Real Biz. What have you failed at?
Oh my God, I failed at a million things. I failed to achieve my goals a million times, but I don't look at it as failure, and that's not being positive. I look at everything as an experience to be learned from. I look at success as a result of good judgment, and good judgment is the result of experience, and experience is often the result of bad judgment.
Are there ever days where you don't want to get out of bed?
If my wife is beside me in an amorous mode, yes. But other than
Well, that's
that,
a good answer. So otherwise, no, you're always jumping out of bed.
I don't know if I'm jumping out of bed, but I look forward to the day for sure. I'm not a sleeper. I sleep 5-6 hours a night. I figure I'll sleep when I'm dead. My wife does love to sleep, so that's a little conflict at times.
So 1986, you're first on the scene. What is your biggest fear?
Gosh, probably not having the level of impact that I wanted to have. Dying young.
Biggest fear today?
Gosh, I'm not BSing. I'm not really fear-driven. I'm so fulfilled. I don't know. Maybe not being able to answer this question effectively for you.
Anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to say on the record?
I would just like to say that I really believe that if you're pursuing success, the thing that's going to light you up the most is giving. And when I wrote this book, I decided I was fed when I was 11 years old, and it changed my life. It was Thanksgiving. We had no food. It made me believe that strangers care. So I decided I fed 2 people when I was 17, and then 4, and then 8, and then 1 million people a year, then 4 million a year, and I fed 42 million people over my lifetime. But
the proceeds from this book are going to that.
All going to Feeding America, and I'm feeding 50 million people myself. It's not just the proceeds I've added to it. And I'm doing matching funds up to 100 million people. So we live in a country where 49 million people go to bed every night in the richest country in the world and don't know where their next meal is going to be. 17 million are children. So if you want to change your life, pick up my book and it'll change your life. But I also feed 50 people with each book. And I'm proud of that.
50 with every single book.
Yeah.
Tony Robbins, thanks so much for joining us on Real Biz.
Thanks for having me on.
Great talking with you. And thank you so much for joining us for Real Biz. We want to hear from you. Do you have a question to ask Tony Robbins? Let us know. Like us, tweet us at Rebecca Jarvis and comment below. And from the studios in New York City, I'm Rebecca Jarvis. Have a great day.